hear what people say about how, well, this isn't the quote unquote musical selling prime for artists of this age, and so you know what I'm saying. They're not going to do X amount of numbers. No, I get that. 20,000, y'all. No, like y'all got to meet me in the middle somewhere with what I'm talking. I'm not asking for the nigga to like go. Like, have you seen the biggest selling albums this year?
Who are they?
I mean, like, like Drake's Her Loss is still moving like hundreds of thousands of copies a week.
Right. I mean, it's two artists, and one is Drake,
I'm not
obviously.
asking him to move. Hold on, I'm not asking him to move hundreds of thousands of copies a week. My question is why isn't this shit at 500,000 or a minimum? You know what I'm saying?
Well, let's put things in context. Let's put things in context. When we were growing up in the '90s, right? When we were growing up, the artists that our parents grew up listening to, they were in their 50s at this point, I would believe, either late 40s or 50s, right? Were they moving units back then? Like, when Patti LaBelle was dropping, was she moving units? When Barry White came back with Practice What You Preach, was he moving units? Like, I feel like the industry just hasn't been conducive or found a way to actually sell to an older demographic, whether that be, with new music per se. They're able to actually sell the concerts. But when the Osley brothers were dropping what they were dropping in the 90s and early 2000s, how well were those albums really doing? And if they were doing well, was it because they were selling to a younger demographic now? Or was it because they were selling to our parents? You know what I mean?
Okay, so I'm gonna say something to you, and this is what I mean about how we're gonna have a whole. You ready to have let's have a quick stadium flow convo, Mike, about these things right quick. About how the difference. Okay, Mike, blacks make up 13% of the American population.
Allegedly, but yes. I don't believe that.
I believe that wholeheartedly.
I don't believe it, but okay.
From the things that I've seen, yeah, I believe it. 3% of that is incarcerated, Mike. We make up 10% of this nation free. I'll throw you a caveat, and let's say that the numbers are a little misappropriated and that we make up 20% of the population, and that 5% is incarcerated, which leaves it at 15. I know a lot of intelligent blacks that feel the same way that you do, so let's say that we make up 15% of this population, okay?
Okay.
So we're already against it, Mike. You feel what I'm saying? We're already against it number-wise about making our stars big all-time stars for the rest of their life.
Well, hold on, time out. I want to put something in that I've kind of come across just, as of late, right? Do you find it interesting? When's the last time you filled out one of those, like, forms where they ask you, like, you African-American, black, all that stuff, right? Hey, what's up? Like any form that's kind of like a Scantron type thing, right? Where it's like black or African American, Asian. What's the other one they'll have? Middle Eastern. I think Native American or whatever, or white. When I look at those forms now, I find it very interesting that they don't have Hispanic on there, right? So they have Hispanic on there once you click either black or white. And then they'll ask you, are you non-Hispanic black or, African-American or Hispanic black or non-Hispanic black? So saying all that to say, a lot of the quote-unquote white numbers from a, percentage standpoint come from many people who are Hispanic who are registering themselves as white. So the numbers are kind of cooked in that way.
No, I was about to say, so I'll tell you another way that the numbers are cooked, and then we can have the conversation right quick, Mike. I'll give you an example. My youngest sister, and I don't tell too many people this, but, I don't mind, I don't think she minds. She's half Sicilian, half black, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now, about her Italian, let me say Sicilian heritage, because Sicilians don't even consider themselves to be Italian, really. About her Sicilian heritage, I once had to adopt my youngest sister. So she was literally in my home and in my care. And so when I am getting her enrolled in school, I meet this woman who, Brenda McMillan, part of Delta Sigma Theta, and my sister's now part of Delta Sigma Theta. But one of the first things she told me when I was filling out my sister's paperwork for middle school when I had adopted her was put her down for other, Armand, because it's going to offer your sister the opportunities you didn't have just by you checking that box. So there are some of us that's going unchecked. I was in a relationship with a woman, my ex, Mike, she's half Filipino. She put down other because, quite frankly, as a black woman who has Pacific Islander heritage from Decatur, well, the Decatur black side ain't about to get her a job. That Pacific Islander side is. All right.
And you know what? And if you're a fair-skinned Hispanic and you put white Hispanic, you're going to put white Hispanic before you put black Hispanic, right? And that adds to that white number, you know what I mean? And I just don't understand why, if they're not trying to cook the books and cook the numbers, why don't you just have Hispanic along like you do Asian and, black, African American and white or whatever? But the fact that this 70%, all I'm saying is that 70% is kind of built on the strength of the fact that they got the Hispanic white population added into it, if that makes any sense. But yes, we're still outnumbered.
No, and I'll just be honest with you, Mike, more often than not, when black people sell records in the United States, whether we like it or not, Mike, it's because the white people buy the black records, not the black people. We don't make enough of the populace up, and we don't have enough disposable income over a course of generations at our disposal for us to do some of the things that get done for the white artist. And that's why I stress some of the things that I stress. We have to understand that we are fighting a numbers game that is very, very difficult for us to win for a variety of reasons. Mike, if you think black people got Mariah Carey and Whitney Houston and Prince and Janet and Michael Jackson to go diamond, you're kidding yourself. That's just the biggest hoax in history. Black people didn't buy Purple Rain and Thriller. White people did.
I think we did too. I think you sell a bunch of records when you sell a bunch of records when everybody buys the record. Like, let's look at Nelly, right?
No,
Nelly's the kind of artist where both people were buying.
Hold on, Mike. I wasn't finished because I was actually about to say, go look at your biggest selling albums. Really go look at them, Mike. And I'm not being funny when I say this. Nelly is a tall, light-skinned, attractive guy whose first single, quite frankly, came off as a nursery rhyme and is very non-confrontational to white people. It's just the truth.
So what do you think?
Mike, you get on Eminem about this all the time, and that's why I'm having this conversation. Because,
I was going to go there.
No, because you're right, Mike. You're like, it's only selling because he's white. You're damn right.
Well, no. I want to rewind that.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Purple Rain, black people didn't make Purple Rain go double diamond or Thrill. Like, no, we don't run the numbers like that.
Well, this is the thing.
Not you. I'm not saying you. I'm saying that when Nelly's doing that 6-7 million, if you think that that's black people saying,
no. Nelly got support from MTV, right? And so did, Michael and Prince for their biggest efforts. And MTV was catering to a younger white audience at that time specifically, right? I think what I'm saying as far as Eminem goes, the people that he was marketed with were Kid Rock, Limp Bizkit. At the time, it was Christina Aguilera, Britney, like that audience. So the audience he was presented to was that massive white tween audience. And you look back at what Kid Rock and Marilyn Manson was selling at that time. Kid Rock's album around that time period did 15 million. Limp Bizkit's album at that time did 14 million. This is the class that Eminem is being marketed with. That's why I say that. It's not just him being white alone. Okay. It's the fact that he was being marketed with that audience. And people like Nelly or even Juvenile at that time, they were guests in that rotation. If Nelly had a hit, okay, you could roll with us, right? If Juvenile had backed that thing up, yeah, you could get on TRL for a day. But M lived there. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. No, you want to know what, Mike? I like that you clarified that, qualified that, and cleared some of that up. That was definitely very, very necessary. So you're not just talking about his whiteness for the sake of his whiteness. You're talking about the other white contemporaries in music that he's being paired with, as in, i.e., you're pairing him with the white rock stars and not with the black rappers that are his contemporaries.
And see, revisionist history is now people pull him out and act like he was being marketed with Jay and Nas back then, and he wasn't. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're playing on two different playing fields. People will be like, okay, well, in 1999 and 2000, Eminem sold this and Jay-Z sold this. It's not the same. They weren't even on the same stage. You know what I'm saying? And see, stuff like Renegade makes it seem like they were, but they weren't.
No, like, I'll tell you this, like I Am, the autobiography by Nas is triple platinum. Pain is Love by Ja Rule is triple platinum. That ain't the same triple platinum album in my eyes. You feel me?
Right.
So I get what you're saying. It's like, no. What Ja had to do to sell those 3 million records? It's like, nah, that ain't the same.
Right.
So I do feel what you're saying. No, I'm glad that you cleared some of that up, but we got to start having conversations. That's why, Mike, that's why I'm telling you the Prince story about James Pitts, because I realized that in order for our artists to make it to the level that they're supposed to make it consistently over a course of time, we do have to approach the fandom the way that James Pitts, Mr. Pitts, approached his Prince fandom. Like, we all have to approach it that way in order for these artists to really survive and to thrive, because the only artists that we've really done that for, they survived and they thrived. 2 Jacksons and a Prince. Janet, Michael, Prince. They thrived because we supported them with the fanaticism.
Yeah.
So it's real. So it's not enough for us to just pull up, and that's all I'm saying.
You're saying we got to be super fans because you're saying we got to be super fans because we're already behind the 8 ball with numerically.
Yes, numerically, on a couple of ways, we are already behind the 8 ball. Our fanaticism, it has to come as part of the package. It needs to be in the kit in order for it to work for our artists the way that it should. Because if not, Mike, I'll tell you this. Now I understand why Tina Turner wanted to live in London. Now I understand why Stevie Wonder wanted to live in Africa. Now I understand why my favorite group of all time, or my co-favorite group of all time, Wu-Tang Clan, is going on tour, and most of the tours overseas with my favorite MC of all time, who happens to be the greatest MC of all time, because it's easier for them to sell out stadiums in this melting pot of a global climate than this 80-20 America with our fan base not being as educated and privy on how to support our artists. This isn't just a rap conversation, Mike. Everything that you're saying about the Isley Brothers, Earth, Wind, and Fire, OJ, Parliament Funkadelic, Bootsy Collins and the Rubber Band. You want me to keep on going, Mike? No, I hear you, player.
Well, you know what I think also that's interesting, and I wasn't thinking about this before. What does it look like for hip-hop artists internationally to book with promoters? And because we already know what the red tape looks like when it comes to a hip-hop event or, at any venue in the States. And not to mention, you got this whole thing with the Glorilla concert where people got, stampeded. It was terrible. 3 people died, and you got Benjamin Crump on the case with that. So that's not really going to help the insurance for hip-hop shows. I would imagine that on an international level, there's a lot of less red tape for hip-hop concerts. And it might just be easier for artists to just go over there and tour than it is in the States.
Yes. Less red tape, more love, more money, less legalities. Yes.
I could see that. Uncle Fran with the super chat says, Coop, to answer your question about the attachment for an album release, leverage. I think he's talking about Jay. MC with the super chat says, there's a difference between a fan and a supporter. Interesting. That's real. Okay. There's a lot of people who I'm fans of that I don't support, to be honest.
No. You know what? You end up a fan when you start supporting. Like, I wasn't a fan of Rick Ross at first. But then he made an album that I wanted to support. And then I ended up being a fan when I supported the album. And I was like, yo, this dude's really good. I was like, let me go back and get his other stuff.
Uncle Fran with the super chat says, Coop, Adele has leverage. Rihanna has leverage.
Yes. You want to know what they have? They have white people buying their records across the world all the time. Yes, they do.
Yes, but Rihanna has a huge international audience.
Riri's international.
36 Chambers with the $20 super chat showing love over here says 26,000 units is approximately 45 million streams using Spotify and Apple Music's algorithm. It's not that we aren't listening, it's that stream numbers are worse for regular fans to help artists. Her loss is plays in the bars and clubs. Well, I do think that, you know what, that is another interesting dynamic, and we talked about this when it came to New York radio and the expansiveness of what it takes for what it looks like for a stream to get played on a radio station. What does it look like for a stream when you're played in a club? And, you know, when you're constantly being played in the nightlife and versus an album that doesn't have records that are being played in the nightlife.
No, you're right. That's why I told you is it's like, no, when I heard If I Ruled the World at one of my favorite cigar bars and it was late at night, I realized it's like, oh, hold on. I'm like, Sam gonna eat off this record real good forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that's the one thing that has really helped the 90s artists, right? Like I think the 90s is the pinnacle of hip hop being on the radio, and not just being on the radio, but in future times being nostalgic, where it's a record that could still be played on the radio. I don't think the 2000s did that as much as the 90s, and the people who made important records in the 90s, like you said, are going to eat forever off of that. Outkast is good. Like, this shit's always going to get played.
Yeah. They're good. Hold on. Do you know when Outkast went from rich to wealthy, right? It's when white people got hip to Outkast. It's called Stankonia. Most white people think Outkast, Stankonia might have been Outkast's first album to them. That's when Outkast started making stupid money and became wealthy. That's when they started going multi-platinum many times.
Yeah. They came with a different edge on Stankonia.
We got to address the nature of the threat, Mike, like societal-wise, so we can address it musically-wise. And a lot of us as blacks, we don't like having this conversation because it reminds us of just the atrocities that have been done to us and how truly unfair it is for us as blacks on every single level in this nation.
So what are you saying? Are you saying that? So are you saying that artists should aim to make music palatable for Caucasian audiences? Because that's how it comes across when you're saying it.
What do you think? What do you think Thriller and Purple Rain really is, Mike? What do you think it really is? Because if you go back and look at the memoirs of when the dudes are talking about making them records, they talking about them being bigger than what they are, as in, like, no, this black fan base and going like double, triple platinum, kind of cool, but I just watched Tom Petty sell 11 million records. I just watched Bruce Springsteen sell 18 million records. I just watched Pink Floyd sell 15 million records. I just got you get what I'm saying?
Well, with Michael, it was a little deeper.
Prince and Mike was sitting back watching that and is like, I'm better than every last one of these guys. You want to play that game? Let's go play that game. I make this music better than you.
Well, I mean, they both had their experience with that. And I know with Michael specifically, they would tell him things like, and this is after Off the Wall, that black artists couldn't make the cover of magazines because they couldn't sell magazines. And so, you know, he was like, look, I'm just going to make an album that's bigger than everything. And he did that. Now, I want to ask you, though, how do you do this in hip-hop terms, though?
Hold on. Before you do, I want you to understand what you just said. People need to hear that. They are telling Michael Jackson he too black after Off the Wall.
Mm-hmm. They said, no, it wasn't just him. They were saying that black artists can't sell magazines. They told Michael Jackson.
Black artist. That's Michael Jackson.
Yeah, and they also told him. MTV also told him that they weren't going to play his stuff because they don't play black music.
Hello. So I'm gonna say again, what do people think Thriller and Purple Rain is? Because I'm reading Prince's memoirs. This fool going to Bruce Springsteen shows and he's like, yeah, this guy ain't that talented to me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Or like he's saying it in references like, oh, I see. Prince is saying it like, oh, I see why people like Springsteen, but what does he have on me that I should be going double platinum? And he's selling out every stadium, and so that's where the whole our whole Black Stadium flow comes from Thriller and Purple Rain getting made because those two guys realized it's like, no, we're better than everybody else, so we're just going to go ahead and play this little game with you right quick and take your music from you. Thriller and Purple Rain are not R&B albums; they're pop culture albums. It's literally black men telling the establishment, I do your music better than you. Take that, take that, take that.
It's like my favorite line from that Jackson mini-series they had when Joe was like, you think Donny Osmond got something on Michael Jackson?
Right. No,
that's laughable.
Go listen to the melodies on those albums, Mike. Those aren't classic R&B melodies. Like Purple Rain is a bunch of pop songs. Take Me With You is a pop record. Mike, I don't care where we go. I don't care. What Prince ain't talking about that. The album before, he was talking about controversy. Ronnie Go to Russia. He was talking about communism and whether he was straight or gay. And all of a sudden, it's Take Me With You and Happy Ballads. Like, come on.
No, you're right. What I was going to ask you, though, but how do you do these things, a Thriller and Purple Rain, in hip-hop terms? And what are you proposing the hip-hop artists should do to, I guess, get their numbers to the level of, the Taylor Swifts and Adeles of the world?
I say this, and I mean this with all seriousness. I really think we missed an opportunity in black music when Lauryn Hill didn't come back out again. I think her album was our last real shot at that. And we needed more of her, and we just haven't gotten it. That's just the quick of me off the top of the head. You know, it's more conflated than that, Mike. It's deeper than that. We haven't even got to our MC ratings because we've gotten into this serious conversation about it, and it's real. But it's like the best off the top of the dome I can just give you is that, like, what the miseducation of Lauryn Hill was for me was a blueprint of what black music was going to be and become, and I don't think we've done that. I don't think she did it either, and I think that's why, Mike, if I ever had a personal gripe with her, it was that I think of her on the highest regard and highest terms, and I look at her not coming out with music as a tipping point in black music for us, not in a good way.
Well, what do you think about, based on what you saw at that Kanye West listening event, do you think that he's been able to kind of do some things that some of his contemporaries in hip-hop haven't done by kind of pulling generations and people with all kinds of backgrounds into his art?
He does a great job of doing it. He just happens to be such a, what's the word?
A rock star? He moves like a rock star. He does.
Has a figure. He touches so many buttons of people. Okay, so this is what I'm saying is that, like, Mariah don't come off as confrontational. Whitney, Mike, Janet, Prince, the only confrontational one out the bunch. There is what Tupac talked about, like when Kendrick's doing that interview with Tupac at the end of The Pimp a Butterfly, where he talking about how, like, this will beat you down and they'll take the fire up out of you.
Right.
Yeah, that's real.
I think that the people that you name...
Mike, go look at Whitney Houston's first 3 album covers in succession and tell me they didn't whitewash my girl.
Oh, definitely. No, we know that. I think that Whitney, Michael, and Mariah, they moved like pop stars, whereas Kanye moves as a rock star. Like, I'm going to shake some shit up. Like, he's out here to do that. You know what I mean? Like, he could say all the right stuff. He could do all of those things, but it takes away from the root of what he came here to do. He came in the door saying unpopular stuff.
And this is what, and us as black people, we have to understand that being the people's champion doesn't mean being the champion. It's like, do I love Mary J. Blige more than I love Mariah Carey? I sure do, and I always will. Mary's first full album equal the sales of Mariah's first album, right?
But I think Mary's...
People understand that? No, people need to understand that. Mary's first 4 albums, album-wise, as far as the unit, as far as the times when it was coming out, I'm sure it's different now, Mike. Mariah Carey sold 10 million records out the gate. Mary J. didn't hit 10 million records till she was releasing All That I Can Say damn near. This
is what I'm going to say to that, though. I feel like what works for Mariah wouldn't work for Mary, right? And I think that, it just so happens that what Mariah's good at does sell a lot of records, whereas what Mary's good at might not sell as much, but it'll have you in the hearts of the people longer than what Mariah does.
But this is what I mean too, and I say this respectfully. It's like, well, Mariah Carey light skin, they whitewash Mike, they whitewash Whitney, Prince light skin, Janet about the only one they didn't get their goddamn hands on, Mike.
Jay Short with the super chat says Jay is the greatest front runner in hip hop history. He needs to win. He needs to win in his sales because he doesn't handle adversity well. He stumbled after Ether, losing Dame, Ye being more popular and modern rap. I think he responded to Ether very well. I mean, not the response. I mean, his album. I don't mean super ugly. Let me rephrase that. I think that, making the Blueprint 2 and then quickly making the Black Album and then kind of vanishing, I think he handled that part very well. And I think he rapped at a very high level for those two efforts and got out of the way of that 50 Cent wave that was coming too. Think that was very smart.
What do you think, Mike, is the answer as far as these numbers? I mean, I know you've been asking me questions about what I think and what I feel, but let's be solutions oriented. Is there a viable solution to the things that we're thinking about?
I think, I'm usually not a pie in the sky type of. Go ahead.
Hold on, Mike. I don't want to stop you short before you make your comment. And I want to phrase this way.
Okay.
Like, you understand, if Nelly and Ja Rule were to come out right now, who are like the biggest selling black artists of their time, they wouldn't be doing no numbers right now either. So there is like a deeper issue going on.
I think they probably would. I mean, we look at Drake, right? Drake does numbers.
No, they wouldn't. If they would, Mike, they know. Trust me, both of them dudes, they wouldn't be doing stuff like Dancing with the Stars and stuff like that.
They're not 21 years old anymore. I think a 21, 25-year-old Nelly and Ja Rule come out doing what they did, they would do well. I mean, I think Cisco would do great.
I'm talking about them as grown artists now, having sold and gone multi-platinum time and times over. They wouldn't do no numbers like that right now either, like if they were to come out right now.
I just don't think... I mean, I just went over what Kid Rock and Limp Bizkit and even Christina Aguilera were doing in their prime. If they came out with stuff now, they're not going to sell those units. Making that type of impact and doing those type of numbers, that's a young person's game, man. It is what it is. Now, as far as what to do about it, I look at people like Wu-Tang, right? Wu-Tang did numbers when they came out. And they didn't go out there and, water anything down, right? I think you're just going to need a super talented young artist that's fresh and doing something new that people haven't heard. That's what's going to be that, next wave and do numbers. And somebody, you got to be marketable. Obviously, Wu-Tang had Method Man on their side for the marketability. I think you're just going to have to see some real stars walk in the building. You don't see Snoop Dogg's come in the building every day. And everybody's not going to be a platinum artist, and that's fine. I just think that you can't force it. You know what I'm saying? Like, when it happens, it happens. I don't think there's a formula that would turn, and I say this respectfully because I like this artist. It's not a formula that's going to just turn Joey Badass into an artist that's, doing Drake numbers. It's just not going to happen like that. And, certain artists are just going to do a certain amount of numbers. I think consistency with your with your audience is key, right? And I think we just haven't seen that person outside of Drake that's just going to do numbers like that. Jermaine Johnson with the super chat says, if KD4 is excellent, is right now Nas's prime? No, I mean...
Well, I told you, he's having a second prime that's kind of making us rethink things. And so that's why, part of even why I'm having these conversations is because, well, quite frankly, this is the first time that I feel like somebody, not just... Hold on, Mike.
Eric
not
Terrell,
just like,
go ahead.
It's not just a hip-hop thing.
Right.
Like, I can't think of anybody in music this late that made albums this good. And so part of even why it makes me think about these things in the numbers is because of that. Because it's like we really haven't had somebody like him who in his prime, quote unquote, was considered to be a titan and one of the greatest to do it, come back around and do stuff like this.
Well,
we just haven't seen it happen. And so it makes me want to address these things. And quite frankly, these are issues that we have been having in the Black artist community long before, this KD run popped up. I told you, Nas is just a litmus test for a lot of the talking points about the stuff that I'm saying that I feel about the music business. Because like I told you, if it's getting done to him, on this run, it really shows you what the music business is not in everybody's fair game.
Well, this is what it is too, man. Like, I think when you have a demographic, I mean, Nas is 49, right? And a lot of the people who came up on Nas, who didn't just go back and check, are like 40 plus. And sometimes when people get to that age bracket, they're not listening to hip hop as much as they used to. I mean, you said it yourself, like hip hop's not your go-to, you know what I'm saying, when you get in the ride all the time, right? And we cover hip hop, so we're probably listening to hip hop a lot more than, the average person in our age bracket. But certain people, they're not listening to hip hop in the way that they used to listen to it in their 20s. And they're definitely not checking for new music when they're doing it. They're going back to the stuff that's from their more, formative years. So you got that part going against, certain artists that are at a certain age bracket. But the youth, that's all they're listening to. Somebody who's 20, 22, like they're listening to hip hop. And the artists that they're listening to heavy, they don't come out of rotation. And those things get multiplied and it turns into a situation where, 21 Savage's feature with Nas is the highest streaming thing because that's bringing generations together. And you mentioned Michael. I mean, think about when Thriller came out. He was 24, 25 years old, right? And so he had a young audience fan base, and he had that fan base that grew up with him as a Jackson 5 member, and possibly a fan base of people who were just Motown fans too. So you're bringing a whole bunch of people together in a whole bunch of different demographics, ages, cultures, and hip-hop artists, especially at a certain age bracket, they're just not getting that kind of reach. And they're definitely not getting the radio play because you got all these old school hip-hop stations that don't play any new music that any of these old school artists are putting out. You know what I mean? So it's like, where's the outlet? And I guess that's what we're here to do,
Mike, give me 2 minutes. I need to get off this phone because it's dying and call you from my laptop.
Okay, cool. Let me get to Eric Terrell super chat. He says, Coop, Nas is doing fine. The 90s is over. Move on. Let's see. Shoot, I lost this real quick. Jay Short with the super chat says, I agree with what you're saying, Coop, about black people not being enough to do those numbers, but those other communities usually wait to see if black people co-sign someone first before they buy in. You're right. I think that's the important part where the black audience actually comes in at, because you can't just skip over the black audience. You actually have to have a foundation with the black audience. We saw that with Jack Harlow. Most definitely, because when you try to skip over and the black audience hasn't co-signed first, everybody else not going to jump on the bandwagon. Leroy Green with the super chat says, the X factor with the white audience is that they bought a lot of those early PE, Cube, and Wu-Tang records because there's a section of them that wants the real. I think the Sonics, too, when you think about the type of production that PE, Cube, and Wu had, I think sonically, that was attractive. The message was attractive there, too. But also with Wu-Tang, the lyricism, it was something that, could be studied. So I could see, how audiences kind of connected with that. Uncle Fran with the super chat says, Mike, I was saying the only 3 artists have been able to do those albums, the album deals with corporations. Jay, Adele, and Rihanna. Oh, you're talking about leverage in that sense. Gotcha. I mean, Jay is a hustler, man. He made it make sense. I think all those deals are smart. Brian with the super chat says, you don't think Drake hit those top tier numbers? Drake is the number one artist in the world. I think he's probably the biggest star in the world. Let's see. Cooper's coming back in. I don't know if you were watching while you were gone, but Jay Short brought up a good point. He was like, the black audience has to co-sign artists before the white audience jumps on them. And that's the truth. I mean, you have to have a foundation with a black audience as a black artist. And, I mean, we saw that even with Jack Harlow when they tried to kind of skip over that and make him a superstar. It didn't work. Because, you know, the core audience didn't.
And by we, I mean, mostly you had something to do with that, Mike. That's what I'm saying about us really impacting the culture. Like, because you pulled up, like, hold on. You're like, Coop, how we just going to let them do that?
Well, like, see, no. This is the thing, man. What they tried to do, it was devious, Coop. They tried to slide him in between these big releases. You had, Pusha T was dropping, Future was dropping that next week, and then they slid him in there. And then after that, it was Kendrick Lamar. I'm like, wait a minute. How did this guy just get slid in between Pusha T, Future, and Kendrick Lamar? We got to talk about this. And we talked about it and the people wasn't with it. And Rolling Stone put out that wild article, too, that we kind of documented. So they did it to themselves. They tried to skip over the core audience without actually doing the work. You know what I'm saying? You can't do that. It was the
wild article that got me. Because I knew the music wasn't going to be there. Because the music hasn't been there yet. I knew the music wasn't going to be there. It's like, so now we just going to lie for them, though, too?
Well, according to DJ Academic, he had the numbers and the inside info. He was saying that it underperformed by 150,000 units. They had a projection out there that, he fell very short of. And my thing is, what was that projection based on? I guess it was based on the bogusness of, some of the smoke and mirrors that they were trying to put out there. Because I remember he got on Ebro's Hot 97 morning show, and Ebro said, yo, man, this is going to be the last time you get here. You're here, because usually after artists blow up and get big, they get too big to come back. And they were already kind of declaring him as a superstar before the people even said it. That was the mistake. You gotta let the music make you a
superstar first. That's why when I tell you that Snoop is rap's first big superstar, is because he's the first guy that I heard where it was like, who is that?
Yeah.
How did he do that?
Yeah.
Everybody before him, there was some sort of factor that came in. It's like, no, ladies love Cool J because LL Cool J looked good and was in great shape. You know what I'm saying? These other dudes could really rhyme. Like the other guys that you were hearing, rhyme, they were rhyming at the top of their level. Snoop wasn't necessarily like a Rakim or KRS-One or Cool G rap on the mic. He wasn't that. He had it, Mike. He's the first one that really had it. So when you heard him creeping with me as I moved through the hall, it's like, who the fuck is that? That's Snoop Doggy Dogg. It's like, oh shit, I like Snoop. That's that nigga. That's that nigga.
Basketball Truth of the Super Chat says, there are Nas fans saying that KD3 is better than Reasonable Doubt. What do you guys think?
No, that's just absurd.
I don't think that. No.
That's just wrong.
And it would be too early to even say something like that.
Real talk. And I don't know, fam, but I think Nas might tell you, be like, they need to chill. They might want to relax. They might want to relax.
Reasonable Doubt's one of the greatest hip-hop albums ever made.
It is. I mean, Mike, it's so great that it's like, even sometimes, there aren't 20 albums better than Reasonable Doubt. I don't think there's 20 albums. If there is, it's right about 20.
Yeah, it's around 2025-ish, I would say.
It's 2025-ish, right?
Yeah. Jay Short with the Super Chat.
When I said KD3 was top 50, Mike, I meant 48, 49, 50.
Jay Short with the Super Chat says, elephant in the room. Shouldn't Kendrick be that diamond-selling artist with all the promo and the critical acclaim?
What makes you think he's not? Good Kid, Mad City is still selling hundreds of thousands of copies a week. Here's what I'll tell you.
We never hear about his numbers, though. We always hear about Drake's numbers, but we don't hear about
numbers.
His.
Kendrick's doing numbers.
I could
Good
imagine.
Kid, Mad City is still doing numbers. And you want to know why? And how about this? The artists that we have taken issue with the most, Mike, have two of the three most real fanatic fan bases, Kendrick's fan base and Eminem's fan base.
No. Who would you say is Kendrick's fan base?
I don't know where these motherfuckers came from.
And when you said that, I'm like, if you ask me who Eminem fan base is, I know exactly what that is. You know what I'm saying? Like, you ask me Nas's fan base, I know exactly where that is. But who is Kendrick's fan base really? I know J. Cole's fan base because J. Cole's fan base is loud. They really are. And they support heavy.
Cole moving numbers too.
Yeah, of course he is. Numbers. Of course he is.
Give me 1 second because I can't see shit.
Okay.
It's been a long day.
Peter Parks in the super chat says, there's a lot of pay for play. All smoke and mirrors. Yes, sir. He's been listening to the show long enough. You already know, Peter Parks. I feel like I'm missing a super chat. Oh, no, that's it. Oh, here we go. 36 Chambers with the super chat says, Mr. Morale is doing numbers too, even though it's mid. I can believe it. I mean, it's probably one of the higher selling albums of last year. But I don't really particularly know who is the Kendrick fan base. You know what I'm saying? Like, I knew what it was when it was Good Kid, Mad City. I think I kind of got lost in it when it was To Pimp a Butterfly because I liked that effort. And a lot of the people who liked Good Kid, Mad City didn't love that effort. And I think that's kind of it's similar to Outkast, right? And I think Outkast is different because Outkast had a home base, right, with the South. But I think Kendrick's changed so much from effort to effort, it's hard for me to identify his actual fan base. You know what I mean? Because the people that fucked with Good Kid, Mad City Heavy really didn't fuck with To Pimp a Butterfly like that. And the people that fucked with To Pimp a Butterfly like that, think that one's the one, and everything else is kind of like, okay, but it's not that one,
Everybody in Outkast's fan base has their first 3 albums. Mm-hmm. The core fan base.
Yeah, definitely.
There are not new Outkast fans until Stankonia. It's the same damn fans. It's Southern play. Like whether we talking shit about Dre or like what they doing musically or not. No, same fan base for Southern Playalistic, ATLians, and Aquemini.
But you have that one fan base that puts Southern Playalistic over everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, no matter.
I was part of that contingent for a while.
And you got that boom bap fan base that puts ATLians over everything. Where it's like, no, this is the best that they're rapping. This is where they're not too far out. I like this album. You know what I'm saying?
And then the music lovers say Aquemini.
Exactly. That's me. Rigger Raw with the super chat says, cool. The first superstar was LL Cool J. Get over it. I'm with you, Rigger Raw. It's LL Cool J. And and if we want to talk about superstar on another level, you're not gonna like to hear this. It's Puff Daddy.
First of all, it's not true. I don't know what you're talking about. Puff ain't nowhere in this conversation.
Puff Daddy was everywhere. Like he was with Godzilla.
Respectfully,
he was dancing.
Respectfully, Mike. No, respectfully. Since cats want to do it, and I don't want to do because I love them, but I'm about to go ahead and do them now. Mike, go ahead and pull up the numbers for Bad and Radio and Bigger and Deffer.
Well, if we want to go there,
Mike, I bet you that they didn't all even out. I bet you those 3 albums didn't outsell The Chronic. You don't even want to touch Doggy Style. I bet you Deep Cover, the single, probably did more numbers than 2 of those albums. Want to bet? He is raps for a superstar. Well, he the nigga that started moving. Snoop the one that started moving numbers. He is raps for a superstar.
Well, let me say this, Coop. Does Snoop have a single that sold more than I'll Be Missing You from Puff Daddy? No.
Facts.
Mad Max with the super chat
listen to what I'm about to say. Does Puff have anything like Doggy Style or The Chronic? And don't give me that numbers because Snoop got Puff numbers.
Oh, let's not act
Snoop
like
got Puff numbers. Snoop got Diamond Platinum.
Let's not act like no. Let's not act like Puff Daddy ain't got No Way Out. Great album. Sold a lot of records too.
It's an excellent collaboration album. He has a lot of people to thank for all those plaques. Biggie to thank.
I mean, if we keep it real, there's a lot of people on Doggy Style too.
Mike, don't even play like that. We all know who the star.
Well, that's what the source said. That's what the source said.
Star of the Chronic.
When the source gave Doggy Style 4 mics, what did they say? They had a lot of people on it. I disagree with them, but that's been said too about that album.
That's funny. Were they saying that shit on Volume 2 when they gave it 4.5 mics? You see how they fit the narrative to the conversation?
The East Coast bias.
East Coast bias.
Mad Max to the super chat says Dot Worldwide hasn't sold 10 million copies. He's at 9 million. Him and J. Cole combined have sold less records worldwide than Nas. Interesting. Andre Shashir with the super chat says
that's not true. Those numbers are wrong.
You got to go find the numbers to refute them.